What's good, people? That's right. Been busy. Busy reading. It's time for another Magic Man review, people. Got a good one for you. A really good one. This one is Gaulle by Julian Jackson. Now, this is a really short book. And I think it leaves a lot out of the history, but it really gives you a good overview about General de Gaulle. For those who don't know anything about General de Gaulle, a little thing about de Gaulle, he's kind of awkward, right? He was described as being, he's got a head like a pineapple and hips like a woman. And it's true. I mean, if you look at the guy, right? One of the things that strikes me about this picture about General de Gaulle is, like a lot of generals, well, unlike a lot of generals, especially in the American military, and very much so in the Russian military, you don't see hardly any ribbons or medals, showing medals, on his uniform. His uniform doesn't have all the stuff on there, all the scrambled eggs, all the awards, the clusters, the stars, and all this stuff, and the little this and that. It's very simple. It's very modest. And that to me speaks volumes. I didn't have very many medals. I had one medal and one ribbon, neither of which were presented to me. A good conduct medal, which I didn't earn. They told me to get one. I was a corporal. I didn't have any medals or any badge. And all these little lance corporals of PFCs had gone to the PX and gotten all these ribbons and medals. They had a chest full of medals, more, medals and ribbons than Chesty Puller, right? And so I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm a corporal. You're not. But he's the same kind of dude, so I can kind of relate to the guy. He doesn't have all this stuff on his uniform that shows he's a big man, He was literally a big man anyway. He was 6'5". But this book really goes into, it's a good overview of Charles de Gaulle, the person, the man, and what he did for France. He was very, to me, kind of a tragic figure. At the same time, a very prophetic figure. He was a romantic type figure, but he was also a realist, which really speaks volume to me, because you don't get many realists out there, and that's one of the reasons he was so successful, is because he was a realist. He dealt with the real world, what was possible. He was a very pragmatic man. But he was very arrogant and snotty and rude. People hated this guy. They didn't like him whatsoever. A lot of people don't understand is that the Vichy government in France was viewed by most Frenchmen as the legitimate government of France during the Second World War. And in their colonies in Syria and Algeria, North Africa, and sub-Saharan Africa, you had Frenchmen fighting against other Frenchmen. Okay, you had that, and it gets into a lot of the stuff here in World War II that most people don't recognize, because Americans are very American-centric, I would say, towards the Second World War. They like to believe that the United States won the Second World War. What they don't realize was the Americans, like in the First World War, were late in coming to the war, and we kind of put the cherry on top of the war. Most of the fighting in the First World War was done before the Americans even got on the continent of Europe. Same thing in the Second World War. Okay, we didn't do a whole lot of the fighting. Most of the fighting was done by the French, the Russians, and the Chinese. Okay, and the Germans and the Japanese and the Italians. Okay, most people don't realize that, but it's true. Okay, but there are a whole bunch of passages in this book that are really, and it really speaks to me as the way I see things, and it really, I think it would inspire a lot of young people today. For instance, self-mastery must become a sort of a habit, A moral reflex created by a constant exercise of the will, especially in small things: dress, conversation, thought, a method worked out and applied in everything, particularly one's work. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Let me see if I can find some. He's got a very the author's made a list right here, and I've kind of looked at this and what can I take from this? Some positive aspects of what Gaullism really is, and it's very pragmatic way of looking things. It goes towards the positive. Instead of disorder and division, cohesion and order. Decadence and mediocrity, rank and grandeur, greatness. That's what de Gaulle was about. Very cool guy. I mean, people hated him. I probably wouldn't have liked him. I mean, unless I was in conversation with him back in his crib, because he was two different people. He was de Gaulle in his family life, and he was de Gaulle in his political and military careers. Two different people. He kind of, he would bring people in, very few people in, to his family life, and he was a totally different person. Very prophetic. He writes this about the European Commission, or what would later become the European Union we know today. Who would die for the European Commission, a supranational Europe, with a void at its center? We would be prey to foreign, that is, American hegemony. That's exactly what we've got today. The Europeans are prey to the Americans. And if you're in Europe, and you don't realize that, come on. You guys are our lunch. This whole little thing, this little spat with the Ukraine war, it's really to screw you over economically. We're gobbling you up. So's China. Russia's wanting to sell you stuff. They didn't want to go to war with you. A lot of good stuff. He didn't trust the Americans a damn bit, and I don't blame him. He didn't take France out of NATO. He just removed them from the NATO, from having the final say in what the French would do. They were independent. They were not lapdogs, as you would say, like the British are, or the Germans. The French had their own, under de Gaulle, they had their own foreign policy, their own independence. They still work with NATO. They're still a part of NATO. But they didn't take orders from NATO, which was, in my respect, a good thing. Let me see. He also talking about American hegemony. Hegemony disguised as Atlantic solidarity. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. He recognized it for what it was. Most people didn't really recognize, and they still don't. They think NATO is a defensive. It's a defensive organization. Well, tell that to the people of Libya, how defensive NATO is. Okay. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. I don't want to get too much into the book, but he was a really clever guy. He was always about France. Not always about himself. He did have an ego. You can read that in this book. He had a little bit of an ego to him. But he was always about what was good for France. He put France, his idealism of France, which was pragmatic and realistic. He put it above, he made it his priority. I think today what you have in France are a bunch of sellouts. As far as their leadership is concerned, not the French people so much. We got the same thing here in America, so don't, Frenchmen get in here and say, oh, you American. Hey, listen, we got the same crap over here. It's the same crap all over the place. You know, humans are going to human. It's what it is, man. You know, we got a bunch of sellouts. And we got people that actually care about them. Like their God. You know, you got Orange Jeebus up there, almost got killed the other day. And I don't care. I mean, just a guy. It's not going to change my life. But de Gaulle, oh, they tried to kill de Gaulle too, a couple of times. A lot of stuff left out in this book, doesn't go into detail. So, if you want a short overview about de Gaulle, this is the book to read, okay? It's a good book, don't get me wrong, but it leaves a lot of stuff out. Now, I was expecting this book to be a brick. I didn't look at how many pages it was when I bought it. I saw the recommendation from a magazine that I read every once in a while, and they have a book list on there that I go to. I was like, oh, this seems like a pretty good read. You know, I like the French. I really do. You know, if you haven't noticed, a lot of my books I read are about, you know, France, their culture and their history. You don't get a lot of that from the States. You know, most Americans don't even know where France is, which is sad. You know, it just shows you how, you know, out of it these people are. But it's okay. But right now, France is in a bad state. At least from what I can see. I don't live there. But what I can see, you know, last time I was in London, it wasn't the London that I thought it would be. I think France is the same way. And he predicted this too. In a different light. What can I do? Is there anything that can be done? The French people is letting itself die. They followed me, or a tiny minority did in 1940. They followed me in 1958 with a lot of reservations. But the enemies reappear and destroy everything. This is a country which is disintegrating, and I could do nothing about it. How can one stop a country disintegrating and that its people want it to do? France, like Europe, like the Western world, it's transformed itself into a marketplace. It's not really a country anymore. Like the United States, it's not really a country. It's a business. That's what it is. And the main product that this business deals in is human resources. That's right, you and me, the tax slaves. We exist to provide for the state. You know, we make the products, we do this, we do that, and it's a different time. De Gaulle himself was born at a different time. He was from the old school. You know, he was born in like 1890. He was born in northern France, in a traditional Catholic family, a monarchist family. You know, and he served as an army officer for the Republic. You know, a man of contradictions. A fierce anti-communist, but a man who worked with the communists. Did not trust the Americans worth a damn. Yeah, I can't blame him on that. I identify him. I don't trust Americans either, especially our government. I mean, come on now, really? But it's a really good book. A really good book. Now, I'm probably going to get another book, probably in the future. I'm doing a lot of reading. Got a lot of stuff in the pipeline right now. But this book is too short for me, really. I left out some of the stuff that really needs to be. When de Gaulle removed the French gold from American banks, or started demanding gold for American dollars the French had. It's like, no, we want gold. We don't want this paper crap. You Americans, you're not trustworthy. Give us gold. Ha ha ha. I would love to have been in that room when they said that. When the British bombed the French Navy, that's not really in this book. There's little snippets of there here and there. The battles with the Vichy French. You know, people don't realize a lot of people in Europe agreed with the Germans during the Second World War. They agree with it, including in Britain. Okay, a lot of countries were 50-50 in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in France, Italy. Well, Italy was part of the Axis powers. Axis is not three people, it's two. Okay? The axis of Europe is Germany and Italy. Okay? They said, oh, well, Japan was an ally of Germany. Well, so was Romania and Finland. Okay? And Axis is two. The Axis powers, Germany and Italy. But a lot of people agree with the Germans. And after the war, de Gaulle worked with the Germans. You know? But it was to empower France. So France could be independent of the Americans or anybody else. He went and made treaties with the Soviets. Yeah. Very pragmatic guy. I like him. You know, I really do. I think you'll really get a lot out of this book. And not just about the guy. I think he's somebody, a lot of younger people could emulate or should emulate these days. Not the snotty, rude part, but the self-determination, the grandeur, the greatness, to reach out there and become something, big, to be successful, to excel, not just be some mediocre slump, some, schmuck, just getting by in life. It's a good one, people. Another good book. De Gaulle by Julian Jackson. Till next time, people.